Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to Japan House again this evening. For those of you who may have seen something with Kaizawa-san earlier on today or yesterday, we're very privileged to have the important Ainu woodcarver and artist, Kaizawa Tōru, with us here at Japan House for this event, carving Ainu art in conversation with Kaizawa Tōru and Katō Hirofumi. And today, in addition, with all of you here at Japan House, we are also joined by those online, on Zoom, YouTube, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. So a warm welcome to everybody who is watching us from behind a screen somewhere. So we're delighted to be joined by Biratori-based master woodcarver Kaizawa Tōru, who is known internationally for both his mastery of Ainu woodcarving and his distinctive creative style and original works as an artist, which he has been making in the last few years. And following yesterday's event in which Kaizawa-san demonstrated the techniques and characteristics of Ainu woodcarving, he looked at carving Ainu ita, plates or trays, and makiri, knives. Today we are exploring his roots and the creative journey as an artist and a woodcarver. And joining us in discussion today is Professor Katō Hirofumi, who is the Professor of Archaeology at the Center for Ainu and Indigenous Studies at Hokkaido University. And of course, this event is running alongside our exhibition that we have, Ainu Stories, Contemporary Lives by the Saru River. And that exhibition really started as a result of a conversation between Professor Katō and me sometime before COVID. So thank you very much indeed, Katō-sensei, for all your help and inspiration from the beginning there. And following this conversation, there will be an opportunity for everyone to ask questions, including those online as well. So if you are watching on Zoom, please do use the question and answer function to send a question through. So first of all, before we have a look at some of the works by Kaizawa-san, I will pass you over to Professor Katō, who has known Kaizawa Tōru for many years now, I believe, and is best placed to give a brief introduction to the work of and the history and roots of Kaizawa Tōru, please.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this talk session with Mr. Toru Kaizawa. So my name is Hirofumi Katō, Professor and Director of Center for Ainu and Indigenous Studies, Hokkaido University. So at the beginning of this tonight's dialogue, we'd like to introduce Mr. Toru Kaizawa and his characteristic of his artwork. So Mr. Toru Kaizawa was born in the Nibutani village in the Biratori town in 1958. He grew up in the company of his craftsman father and his fellow artisans. And while respecting the tradition handed down from his great-grandfather, he integrated his own sensibility and technique into them, and actively engaging in the creation of original Ainu art and expressing his own personality and message. And his work received many awards, including the Hokkaido Governor's Prize at the Hokkaido Ainu Traditional Craft Exhibition. So this person in this slide is Toru Kaizawa's great-grandfather, Mr. Utorentoku Kaizawa. The basis of the Toru Kaizawa's artwork is influenced by Mr. Utorentoku Kaizawa. So Mr. Utorentoku was a leading craftsman in Nibutani from the end of the 19th century to the beginning of the 20th century. Many of ethnologists have collected of wood carving produced by the Utorentoku And today, they can be found in the Ainu collection of the Russian Museum of Ethnology in St. Petersburg, and also National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh. So before looking at Mr. Kaizawa's artwork, I'd like to explain the traditional wood carving technique in Nibutani, which he has inherited from his ancestors. The beauty of the craftsmanship of the practical objects of the Ainu has been attracting the attention since the 18th century. The date when Ainu craft began to be produced for the gift and exchange and sale can be traced back at least of the 18th century. For example, Mrs. Isabella Bard, a prominent traveler who had visited Nibutani in 1878, described the beauty of the Ainu craft. The beauty of the wooden tray as a craft object is in its completed wood carving of the Ainu pattern on the single surface. The most common pattern is moreu and the gradual spiral pattern, which is combined with ayushi and the horn and the spin pattern and the lam pattern, and it meaning is a fish scale. So his artwork is backed by the traditional technique as well as having a unique worldview due to his innovative design. From here, we'd like to present some of the most representative artwork of the Toru Kaizawa with our dialogue with him.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Professor Katō. So this is a tray. This is an ita.
はい。
Yes.
これは、北海道大学の植物園にある資料の複製です。今回、同じようなものが展示されています。
This is a replica of a piece of Ainu craft that is in the Botanical Gardens of Hokkaido University. And there's a similar one on display here.
Yes, indeed. So we commissioned 11 ita from Nibutani for the exhibition here. And each one has been made by a woodcarver in Nibutani. One of them, of course, is Kaizawa Tōru. And it's he's taken this inspiration of this particular tray for his piece in our exhibition. Then we move slightly on to something a little different. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
はい。これは、板っていうお盆はこのような曲線を出すとこう乗せたものがばらつくのでガタガタするので柔らかい表現でアイヌ文様を入れています。で、これは宝箱です。
This is a treasure box. The Ainu motifs here are expressed in a softer way, and the techniques that I've used here, if you were to use them on an ita, on a tray like this, the tray would wobble. So I used them on this form instead.
鍵をかけるところはオヒョウという木の樹脂を使っています。
The latch for the key uses elm bark.
When did you make this?
これは10年ぐらい前だと思います。
I think it was about 10 years ago.
Okay, thank you. So I think we're going to go through a chronology of some of the works of Kaizawa-san from about a decade ago to the present day.
はい。はい。
We can see here the ram technique in here. This is a very good picture of it, I think. These fish scales.
はい。これは魚の鱗を表現しています。
Yeah, fish scales, as you say.
アイヌ文様っていうのは曲線とトゲ表現、バラのトゲとか植物のトゲの表現を必ず入れております。
These Ainu patterns always feature the curves, the spirals, and also thorn patterns.
悪いものがこの中に入ってこないようにっていうので、だいたい自分が使うものとかには模様を入れております。
And you would usually have these patterns on objects that you use to keep evil away from you.
This is using Ainu tradition, isn't it? Very much so.
伝統的な模様は必ず変えることはないですけど、いろんな細工は僕はオリジナルします。
I never change the pattern itself, but I use it in different ways and in different forms.
Thank you. I think the next one is something a little different.
はい。これは昆虫を表現して、これは自分なりの遊びの精神。でも左はホタルです。
These are insects. This is me playing around. On the left, we've got a firefly.
お腹が、お尻の方がピカピカっと。
And his bottom does light up.
伝統的なものとこの遊びのものを作るのの切り替えというのはどういう時に切り替えるんですか？
How do you decide when you're going to make something more traditional and when you're going to go for something playful like this?
僕は、移りついついこう違うことをしたくなってくる。そういう時にちょっと息抜きに作るもの。
I get fed up with things pretty quickly, so whenever I feel myself getting tired, I'll switch to something different.
I think this has some connection as well about your story of wood carving. When you first started wood carving, did you create Nibutani ita, or did you create something else?
最初は動物を作ってました。写実動物です。
You're right. I started out making animals, lifelike, realistic animals.
熊とかタヌキとかそういうのをこう彫っておりました。
I carved things like bears and raccoons, tanuki.
でも30過ぎてからこういう模様に目を向けるようになりました。
It was only when I got to my 30s that I started turning towards the traditional patterns.
アイヌ語でホタルニンニンケッポっていうホタルです。それはアイヌの神話にホタルがお嫁さんを探すっていう物語がある。それを、ちょっとアイデアに入れて作りました。
The firefly, ニンニンケッポ
ニンニンケッポ、アイヌ語。
in Ainu language, features in an Ainu folk tale about a firefly looking for a wife. And that's what inspired me to make this carving.
右側は、ミヤマクワガタ、カブトムシっていうんですね。お腹がこう開いて、やはりこれも物が入れられるようになってます。両方とも。
And on the right is a stag beetle, and you can open him up and store things inside. You can do that with the firefly as well.
で、クワガタは全部こうパーツで動くようにしてあります。
And the stag beetle has joints so he can move.
What made you start with animals?
北海道観光ブームで、もう日本中から北海道に来て土産物となると木彫りの熊と今回展示しているアイヌのニポポ人形という夫婦の人形、あれが盛んに売られていたので、僕が18歳で帰ってきた時はそれを、彫って販売してました。
When I was growing up, there was a tourism boom in Hokkaido. People would come from all over Japan, and as souvenirs, they liked to buy wooden bear sculptures, dolls like the ones you see upstairs in the exhibition, man and wife dolls. And so when I was 18, I would come home and I would carve these souvenirs for people to buy.
1970年代ですかね。
そうです。
That's the 1970s, right?
So this is the basis of a lot of what Kaizawa-san has done. There are still some lovely animals carved in his workshop in Nibutani. But this next piece, I think, is a turning point, yes, for your work.
ここに展示されているように、お盆から、ただお盆はこう、物を乗せて皆さんの目に触れるときは、こう、物を置くときにちらっと見られます。それがどうしても違和感があって、せっかくだからお盆でもあり、飾り物の壁にかけるようなものにしておきたい。そしてアイヌ文様は魔除けでもあるので、玄関あたりに飾ってもらいたいという思い、布表現をしています。
Well, the trays, as you've seen, they are objects to be used, and so you might catch a glimpse of the design when you're serving some food on the tray, for example, but you don't get to admire it that much. So I thought that was a shame, and I wanted to make something that could be a decorative object. You could put it on your wall, as well as actually using it. And also because the designs have the sense of warding off evil as well, maybe you could display it in the entrance to your home. That was what I was aiming for. And so I created this tray that has a fabric effect, and it's soft like fabric.
そして紐のところは、おひょうというやはり先ほど言ったように樹皮で、トゥムシってアイヌ語で鎖彫りを表現しています。これは伝統的なアイヌ技法です。
The cord on the side uses elm bark, and you can see tumushi, which is chain links technique for making Ainu chain links.
それは、
それと同じですか？
トンボも同じです。
And that's what I've used on this dragonfly down here as well, that technique.
でも、昔の先人が彫ったものは、箸にこのトゥムシを彫ってるんです。それは、孫とか自分の子供が生まれた時にプレゼントする。この箸。
In the past, my Ainu ancestors would have carved these links into chopsticks and given them as a gift to grandchildren.
でも子供だから動くからこう壊すじゃないですか。もうそれはそれだけ元気な子に育ってほしいというおじいちゃんとか父親がこう彫るものなんです。元気になってほしい。
And the meaning behind that is that because they move these links, they can be broken. And the idea was, you want the child to grow up to be healthy and strong so that they are able to break the links.
Go on to the next slide we have. So this is called ukoku.
日本語で臨床という意味です。
So ukuoku in the Ainu language means around a cannon.
これは僕の家族を表現しています。
And these hands represent my family.
で一番上に、アイヌの、入れ墨を入れた自分が小さい時にいたおばあちゃんの手を表現しています。
The top right hand represents my grandmother, who was around when I was little, and the hand is tattooed with the traditional Ainu tattoos.
風習の中に消えたのはこの入れ墨だけなので、僕は作り手としてこの入れ墨を作品の中に取り入れたいと思う。作りました。
I wanted to incorporate those tattoos as a craftsman because that is one of our customs that has disappeared.
で、一番入れ墨の入れた手は僕の手で、 時計回りで、次の手は指輪をしている現代の妻の手で、娘の手、そして孫の手、で、近所のふくよかな女の子の手を、100年を表現しています。25年、20年、20年、20年。人生の文化は臨床して、継承され続けますよという。
The hand, the tattoos on my grandmother's, the hand is mine. The next hand with the ring is my wife's. Then my daughter's hand and my grandchild's hand. And then top left is the hand of a chubby little girl from the neighborhood. And this represents a cycle of 100 years, 20 years for each hand, and the way that culture comes around.
これは、ウポポっていう女性が、今回きっと最初踊り始めにする、表紙っていうんですか、取って始めるものなんです。それを写真で見て、それでちょっとアイデアが浮かんでこれを作った。本来はね、蓋なんです。展示されてます。
The round object, there's one in the exhibition. Originally it was a lid, and I saw a photograph of this. The women would sit around and tap out a beat for their singing.
So the lid is the lid of a shintoko,
はい。
and the upopo means literally sitting around and singing, and you sit around and beat out a rhythm and then sing in a round in a canon where you layer song after song by the people sitting around, and it is traditionally sung by women. And so this ukuok is the song of the upopo. And you may have heard the word upopoi. Upopoi, yes, which is the National Ainu Museum in Shiraoi now. This comes from the same word, upopo. Where did you take the inspiration for the hand with the tattoo?
その本を見たときに、おばあちゃんの入れ墨が2人か3人入れ墨が入ってた。で、写真では残るけど、こういう作品では誰も制作していないので、せっかくだから自分は作り手なので、それを表現したいと思ってやりました。
When I saw the photographs, there were 2 or 3 older ladies with tattooed hands, and you can see this in photos, but no one was really expressing it in their craft, in their art, and so I thought that was something I would like to express in my work.
Thank you. Should we move on?
はい。
We're back to insects.
はい。これは自分でいろんなものを作ってくると飽きてくるので、自分で思いついたものを制作する。
Yeah, this is just another example of me getting bored and making whatever came into my head.
でも必ず伝統的な先ほど言ったようなトゥムシっていうトンボの尾っぽは全部一木で彫ってあります。
But again, I've used the traditional technique and the tumushi technique for the tail of the dragonfly, which is made from a single piece of wood.
雲も、動くんですけど、お腹の部分は光ります。なぜ雲を彫ったかというと、自宅で、お店でいたときにふーっと上から雲が落ちてきたんです。その時にお腹の部分がアイヌ文様に見えたので、思いつきでインスピレーションで作りました。
The spider's joints move as well, and his tummy glows. And the reason I made a spider was because I was in the shop one day and a spider fell from the ceiling, and the design on the spider looked like a traditional Ainu design. So that's what inspired this one.
そう
There's
な
a
の。
lot of one-offs, aren't there?
一回作るともう飽きちゃう。
I do it once and then I'm bored.
However, having said that, there is a series of pieces which you don't seem to be getting bored of.
うんこの作品は、アイデンティティ。これは2013年に制作した。これはアウタリ、アイヌ語で仲間に問いかけた作品。
Yeah, this is Identity. I think this is the one from 2013. And this piece is asking a question of Autari, which is my fellow Ainu people.
ファスナーを上げるとアイヌ模様見えないので、私は日本人として生きていく。で、これは下げている。僕と同じで、皆さんと同じ服装ですけど、中にはアイデンティティがある。で、これリバーシブルになって、この裏はアイヌ模様で入ってます。これは日本人として生きていくか、中にアイヌの精神をきちっと持って生きていくか、アイヌとして生きていくか、この3択をあなたはどのようにして、どのような生き方をしますかと仲間に問いかけた作品。
With the zip fastened, you can't see the Ainu design inside. And just like me, I look like any other Japanese person. I dress the same, but on the inside, there's another identity. And then on the reverse of the piece, you have that Ainu pattern. And so it's a question for other Ainu people. Do you live as a Japanese person? Do you have a hidden Ainu spirit? Or do you live as an Ainu person?
何かこれに対してリアクションありましたか？
What was the
レ
reaction
スポ
to
ンス、レ
this
スポン
piece?
スで。
これを見たときに、ちょうど作っていたときに、まさに自分を表現してますねって言われて、そこのアイデンティティは。
People realized when I first started making this that I was expressing myself through this piece, my own identity. この作品ができたときは、作られた2013年は、まだ日本の政府が止めて、そんなに時間が経ってないのでね。
And so when you made this in 2013, it wasn't long since it hadn't been long since the Japanese government actually recognized the Ainu people.
若い子なんかは特に、今の若い子たちは自分がアイヌだっていうのをアピール、自分で進んで言いますけど、僕の世代はあまり表現できなかった、言えなかった世代です。
Yeah, young people today are quite open about their Ainu identity, but when I was young, it wasn't something that you could easily talk about or express.
でもこれを掘ったときに、皆さん周りの人たちがいろんな意味で評価していただいて、このパターンを作るような雰囲気が出てきた。作るっていうものを僕が制作するような、依頼が来るようになってきてるんです。
But people, when I made this, people seemed to like it, and so I got asked to make more work like this.
自己表現というメッセージ性のあるものを作るように言われました。
People said I should be making more work that was self-expressive. That's what I did.
Did something happen? Was there a reason for you to start with this particular theme?
こういう時はポッと浮かぶ。
It just suddenly came to me.
そういう時の方が当たるんです。
That's when I find those ideas I find are the best ones.
Thank you. This is an image of textiles. Yes, is that correct?
カパラミプノっていう着物です。で、あそこに先ほど言ったこのトゥムシっていうファスナーの部分を一枚の板から表現。
Yes, this is an Ainu robe design, and the zip again is made out of a single piece of wood.
Thank you. The kaparamip, yes, the kaparamip,
カ
of
パラミ
course,
プっていう
is
女性の着物。
peculiar to the Saru River area of Nibutani. Identity 2.
これはやはり、矢筒に使われている技法をボタンで表現しています。金属をはめ込んで、コートのようにしています。
Yeah, identity 2 is more of a coat, and it uses a technique that Ainu people use on their quivers for their arrows of metal embossing. And here I've used that to represent the buttons.
でこれはちょうどこのカナダの博物館から世界の先住民の作品展があって、その時に先ほどのアイデンティティとアイデンティティ2を展示したんです。
This was exhibited in the National Gallery of Canada, where there was an exhibition of art and craft from Indigenous peoples from around the world, and we displayed Identity 1 and 2.
Thank you. Now this, if you go to Sapporo,
はい。
you go underneath the station
はい。
in the large pedestrian precinct underneath the station. You can see this.
はい。そうです。これは2メーター40ぐらいの大きな作品で、土の中に埋まっていた埋もれ木っていう、埋まっていたニレの木を偶然、猿川の河口付近で掘り上げた、出てきたものです。
This is very big. This is 2 meters 40. And it's made out of an elm tree that was found buried underground near the mouth of the Saru River.
結局これももしそこで掘られなければ出てこない材料です。
It's made from a material that had to be dug up. If we hadn't dug it up, it would still be there.
アイヌ文化ももしかしたらそういう状態になっていたかもしれないっていう。それが今回こういう、埋もれ木で作ったっていうのは、ストーリーがある立ち木で、だいたい80センチ以上の木をいろんな木が、石とかそういうものをそぎ取って、太さがだいたい80センチぐらいですね。
And so there's a story to using this wood that was buried, because the Ainu culture could have gone the same way. It might have ended up buried. But this was underground. It's about 80 centimeters in diameter.
これはコタンコロカムイっていうアイヌ文化では島袋を守り神なので、その近辺、集落を守る神っていうので、これはこの地下歩行空間の部分を守るという意味で作っています。
This owl, the fish owl, is a guardian deity in the Ainu culture, and it protects the village. So this one is protecting this underground precinct. その名前も違う。
コタンコロカムイ。コタンコロカムイ。コタン。
That's the name of the deity.
コタン、集落。これを守る。カムイ、神様。
And it translates as the Kamui, the spirit, the deity that protects the village.
羽は後から取り付けています。
I added the wings on afterwards.
で、木目で一枚一枚の羽の模様を表現して。
And the wings make use, the feathers of the wings make use of the grain of the wood.
やはりこれもファスナー表現で、中にアイヌの模様が入ってます。外も入ってますけど、中に。
And again, I've used the motif of a zip that has the Ainu motifs, the Ainu patterns inside, and in this case on the outside as well.
担当の方は、これね、いたずらされるんじゃないかと思われたんですけど、全然されてないんです。触ってもいいものなんです。
The people who commissioned this were worried that it might be damaged, that people might vandalize it, but it's been fine. And actually, it's a piece that you're welcome to touch.
And you can see it in Sapporo Station. It's an impressive piece. Okay, should we move to the next piece? Identity 3.
はい。これは、ワン、ツーは普通の、一人の表現としています。でもこれは上が男の模様と下は女性の着物の模様を表現して、男と女のアイデンティティを表現して。
Whereas 1 and 2 represented individual people, this one represents two people. The top design pattern is a male pattern, and the one at the bottom is the pattern from a woman's robe. So there's two identities here.
男性と女性のアイデンティティで一つの作品として。
This is one piece that consists of the male and female identities.
And this is in the National Museum of Ethnology in Ninpaku in Osaka, is it?
大阪国立民族学博物館、2016年ですか。
That's right, and I think I made this in 2016.
Okay, let's move on to.
これは、大英博物館に収まっている作品です。
This work is in the British Museum.
で、これは現代のアイヌの若い子たちが盛んにアイヌとしてやっているので、下の巣のところは今までこう虐げられながらもこう保存して継承してきたアイヌの先人の意味がこの巣のところにはあります。で、その若い人たちに言いたいのは、そういう先人の思いを忘れずに、新しく、国立博物館もできたので、袋を新しい土台にして生まれてきてくださいという、飛び立ってくださいという意味で作ったものです。やっぱりこれもコタンコロカムイの不可の表現です。
This is about the young generation hatching in the form of an owl here. The nest that the egg sits in represents their ancestors who have managed to preserve the Ainu culture despite the oppression that they've faced. And this is telling young Ainu people not to forget the people who came before, but to take flight. And again, this is the owl, the fish owl, the guardian deity hatching.
材質は先ほどと大きな袋と同じで土に埋まってた埋もれにニレの木です。
And again, this is made of elm wood that was found underground, just like that other owl.
You were saying earlier that this was made around the time that the museum in Shiraoi.
そうです。その前ですね。ちょっと前ですね。これから国立博物館ができるっていう段階の時に作った。
Yes, right about when they were announcing that there was to be a new museum.
Thank you. So we're lucky enough in London to be able to see this piece on display in the Japanese galleries at the British Museum. So please do, it is on display for people to be able to see.
Right.
Should we go to the next piece?
これはウポポイ国立博物館に依頼されて作った作品です。
This was a commission from the Upapoi National Museum.
これはアイヌ文化の中では神様で一番大事な神様、火の神様です。アペフチ神、火の神様。
This is the most important of the Ainu deities, the god of fire.
アイヌの精神では火のいろりの火の向かってお酒を合わせて神様に、思いを届けてもらう、届ける役目の神様です。
In the Ainu tradition, we sit around a fireplace and send our prayers up to the Kamuy via the fire. So the fire transmits our prayers.
この火の神様はおばあちゃんなので、せっかくだから僕にアイヌ文化をさりげなく教えてくれた、おばあちゃんの顔を写実的に彫りました。それは国立博物館におばあちゃんを収めたいという精神です。
The god of fire is an old lady, and so I used the face of my grandmother, who is the one who took it in her stride to teach me Ainu culture, because I wanted my grandmother to be in the National Museum.
How big is it?
サイズは150ぐらいです。で、これは表で、静かな火です。裏は勢いのある、力のある火を表現しています。
It's about 1.5 meters tall. And on this is the front, and the flames are quite gentle. On the reverse, it's a more violent blaze.
Thank you. We have 2 more slides, and then there will be an opportunity to ask any questions if you have. So please do get them ready. Identity 4.
はい。今まではこの3までは自分の上げ下げ表現してました。これは今ネットとかでね、誹謗中傷とか、傷つけるという意味で、傷つけられる。で、本来はあそこにカミソリかナイフで表現したかったんですけど、でもこれリバーシブルになってて、ハサミのついてるところは方向で模様が変わります。見る方向、右から見るのと左から見るのとでは模様が変わります。
自分で開けるんじゃなくて他人によって開けられる。
傷つけられるっていうか、はい、開けられる。
All the identity pieces that came before this one have a zip or buttons that you can open yourself. This one represents the way that the internet has opened us up to abuse and, in this case, harm and damage, which is being done here by the scissors. I wanted it to be originally a razor or a razor blade or a knife, but that was deemed too extreme, and so it's a pair of scissors. But the piece is reversible. And the design, the checkered design on the front actually changes color depending on the angle that you look at it from.
で、裏には短歌、歌を語っています。
And on the reverse is a poem, a tanka poem.
若き人、いろんな視線見られしも、信念持ちて人生歩みけり、時歩みけり。
The poem reads something like, young people, whatever others think of you, have faith in your path through life.
This can be seen in the museum in Nibutani.
ニブタニ。やっとニブタニで展示してくれました。
Yes, we finally have an identity piece in the museum in Nibutani.
And we have an identity piece here at Japan House.
はい。これは、今度は、鉄の意志を表現しています。
This identity piece is called Iron Will.
めくれても中に固い精神で、生きていってくださいっていう意味の作品です。
It's calling on people to have that strength of will once you reveal what is inside.
That was made this year.
そうです。はい。
Right.
ギリギリセーフ。
Just made it in time.
10月の4日に、運送屋さんが来る10月の4日の午前中まで作ってました。
They came to pick it up on the 4th of October, and I finished it on the morning of the 4th of October.
もうパニック。
But so much so that in the exhibition we have footage of Kaizawa-san making this piece as well. So there is film of him making it. I said there were two. We're just going to go beyond this. This you can see upstairs in Japan House at the moment. This piece, quickly, this is a robe.
これはロンドンの宋さん、四郎さんのギャラリーから制作依頼をされて作った作品です。2019。
This was a commission in 2019 by Saw Shiro's gallery in London. Commissioned this.
こんな大きい着物1枚を木彫りで彫ったのは初めてでした。木1枚の板からですね。
This is the first time I'd made a robe like this out of a single piece of wood.
これもロンドンにあると思います。
And I believe that this is in London still.
Somewhere. Thank you. And then just to finish so that we can compare, we have the 5 identity pieces that have been made.
これやはり時代とともに変化してきているパターンです。
They've changed over time.
向こうは自分の表現、2も自分の表現、3は男女の表現、4がいろんな意味で相手からいろんなことを言われて、でも固い表現、意志を持って生きていく。こんなストーリーは作ったことない。
This is the only time really that I've made a story like this over time. It starts with self-expression in 1 and 2, and then you've got the man and the woman in 3, and in 4 you have what other people might think of you and the damage that can do to you, and then in 5 the strength that you need to show in the face of that.
物語、ストーリーはとても先住民族について大事なことだと思うんですが、このアイデンティティはまだこれからも物語は続くでしょうか？
I know that the stories are very important for the Ainu people and for indigenous peoples. Is this story, the identity story, going to continue?
でもネタ切れし始めてるから。
I think I'm running out of things to say.
だからこれから何か思いつきでまた違う表現でいくと思います。
But if I do come up with an idea, then the expression may change again.
You recently changed ukook, yes?
はい。これは、着物、左側が先ほど見た着物の表現で、ファミリー家族を表現してますけど、こちらも同じ家族で、でも10年経っているので、赤ちゃんの手が今は、右から上から時計回りで3つ目の手がその赤ちゃんの子供の手、孫の手になっています。成長してる。
The family represented by the hands on the left, and the design here is a kimono and robe, a design from a robe. It's the same family 10 years later, but the hands have changed. So the hand of the baby is now the third hand here down at the bottom. They've grown up.
それで、妻に、そちらは孫一人の手で、こっちにもちゃんとあと二人の手も入れなさいって言われて、彫った作品。
And my wife said that now I've got 3 grandchildren, I had to put the other 2 in as well.
今回は全部ファミリーの手を表現して。
But again, it's the hands of the family.
男の模様で表現して。
And this time, the design, the pattern is a male pattern.
これもイギリスにありますね。
これは
This is in the UK as well.
ピットリバーズミュージアム。
Yep, in the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford.
これも今年の4月に納品した。
This I delivered in April of this year.
この時も大変苦労しました。
And that wasn't easy either.
追い詰められてます。
I was chased. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. We've come to the end of our slides, but there is some time for some questions if anybody has any. We have something online already, if I may, which is from somebody watching online. You carved the fish owl chick emerging from its shell. So this is the one at the British Museum. A few years ago as a representation of Ainu culture. Do you think there's progress in the recognition of the flowering of Ainu culture?
今、先ほども言ったように若い子たちがもう今回も、3月まで何回か来ますけど、バンバン若い子たちが自分たちからこうやっている姿を見ると頼もしくなるし、で、それで卵で孵化し表現をしたんです。でも、結構あれ亀だっていう人いるんです。亀。でも、否定はしなくなりました。
It's really encouraging to see the young people and how active they are in Ainu culture. And you'll see there are a number of young people coming over as part of this event from now through to March. So you will get to see some of them. And that's what I've tried to represent with the owl hatching out of the egg, although there are people who think it's a tortoise. And I've stopped saying they're wrong.
同じ孵化だからもういいやと。
It's hatching. Either way, it's hatching out of an egg.
Thank you. Do we have any questions at all from? Yes, we have a question here. Maybe we can get a microphone to you so that you can be heard online.
The lid with the hands, are the hands stuck on or are they just resting?
あ、あれがくっついています。乗って、差し込んでると。
They are stuck on. They slot in.
手は肌の色に合わせてくるみ。
And the hands use walnut wood because it's closer to skin color.
Thank you. We have a question here right in the front as well. Thank you. If you could use the microphone.
Thank you. I was wondering why it was important for him to have his work displayed in the UK.
ここは一番いい質問をしてくれました。
That is an excellent question.
僕の110年前に、ニブタニからビラトリから7人のアイヌの人たちが3ヶ月間ここに滞在してアイヌ文化を紹介して、イザベラ・バードとか、宣教師のジョン・バチラーさんとか、もう一人誰でした？マンロー、ニール・ゴールデン・マンローさんはドクターで、オ おばあちゃん方の体をちょうど結核とかが流行ってた時に自分を犠牲にして助けてくれた、もう神様って言われている、集落では神様って言われている方です。二部谷で。
110 years ago, seven Ainu people from Nibutani, my village, came here to the UK for about 3 months to introduce Ainu culture. And then there are other connections. Isabella Bird came, the missionary John Batchelor came, there was Dr. Monroe, who was revered as a god in my village because he came over when TB was rife and sacrificed himself to look after the elderly of the village.
そしてここには昔のすごく完成度の高い資料がイギリスにはありますので、そういうところに新しい表現の作品を置かせてもらえるっていうのが、職人として次の若い世代に、刺激を与えられるので、よかったと思います。
The UK has a good collection and a good record of old Ainu culture. And as a craftsman, I think that having newer examples, newer expressions of Ainu culture exhibited alongside that is hopefully going to inspire the new generation.
民具を彫るのは、日本のは博物館と美術館っていう分け方されるんですけど、美術館だと付加価値をつけてもらえる。付加価値や評価してくれる美術館。博物館はなんか古い資料を複製してる。それでは次の世代の文化を継承するにはこういう刺激のある評価される作品を次の世代に見せる必要があると思いますので。美術だとアート作品の方が古いものより、古いのは否定してるわけじゃないですけど、アート作品が大事。
When it comes to these traditional crafts, in Japan, at least you will find them either in a museum or in a gallery. And if they're in a museum, they are seen as old and part of history, whereas being exhibited as art gives them added value and hopefully makes them more attractive as something that can be carried on into the future.
I think that's what we've tried to do with this exhibition here, actually. And
Thank you.
I have a slight difficulty with this distinction between what is craft and art in this particular case. And I hope that the way that we can present and the way that we can show the artistry, which is displayed in the work of Nibutani Ita, for example, is something that hopefully will contribute to what you're hoping for, I think. Maybe. Let's see. Do we have any other questions in? We have a question over there. If you could keep your hand up so that we can see where you are and you can use the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you for the talk. May I ask a question directly in Japanese?
If you wish.
作品制作されるときにアイヌの神話をベースにされていることもあるっておっしゃってたと思うんですけど、その神話については、小さい頃とかにご家族からよく聞かされてきたりしましたか
？You mentioned in some of the descriptions that things were based on Ainu legends, myths and legends. Is that something you were brought up with as a child?
先ほどアペフチカムのおばあちゃん、おばあちゃんはいつもお泊まり会に行くと、そう布団の中でこういろんなお話を 昔話をしてくれるんです。
When I was little and I would go and stay with my grandma, who is the god of fire in the slide, she would tuck me up in bed and tell me the old Ainu stories.
小さい時からこういろんなものを入れられてるよ。
So I have grown up with them.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I know that we're running out of time. Do we have any burning questions? We have a burning question at the back. If you could keep your hand up, please. We will have this question, and then I have one question which has come through online as well, and we'll finish there.
So at least a couple of the pieces were finished at the last minute, it sounds like. So perhaps if you could tell us how, either from an idea or from a commission, the process. Do you think I've got 3 months now, so I'll start next month, next week, or how does it all work?
例えば、アイデアが湧いた、また依頼が来ました。そこから、3ヶ月あるから、来月始めましょうとか。
結構実は帰ったら2週間で仕上げなきゃならない作品がある。
True story. When I get home, there's a piece waiting that I've got 2 weeks to finish.
北海道立近代美術館でアイヌアート展があって、それにスペースも設けられているので、帰ったら正月休みなしで来れる。アイヌアート展、近代美術館。
There is an exhibition of Ainu art in the Modern Art Museum. There is a space for me, and I have to fill it. So I don't get a new year this year.
もう結構切りとかいろんなものを制作依頼されてるので、もう朝6時から夜7時ぐらいまでロングランで仕事してる。
I do get a lot of orders for makiri, for the knives, the Ainu knives. So I work from 6 in the morning to 7 in the evening.
だいたい3年ぐらい待ってもらうパターンです。
And generally, if you place an order, you will have to wait 3 years.
でも注文してくれた人が来ると心臓バクバクです。
But I am always terrified when someone who's placed an order actually shows up.
That was me, wasn't it? We have one question from online, which I think is quite an interesting one. Thank you very much for your question, though. Thank you. This is from Louise Boyd from the National Museum of Scotland. What can we hope to see next from your work? What have you got up your sleeve next?
そういう注文がプレッシャーがきついんです。
This is what I don't like people asking me. This is the pressure.
でも、ふっと思いついたときに作ったものの方がよく思われます。評価されます。
But it really is the case that the pieces that just come to me on the spur of the moment tend to be the ones that are best received.
考えすぎると余分なことをこう付け加えていく。思いついたときにパッと掘っちゃう。
I can't overthink it, because I end up adding unnecessary things. It's really just when something comes to me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think on that note, we will leave it. Will you please join me in thanking Kaizawa Tōru? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And to Professor Katō Hirofumi, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And Bethan Jones, valiantly, thank you very much for your interpretation, Ivan. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you.
ありがとうございます。
I'm just going to show you, of course, that this event is in conjunction with our exhibition, Ainu Stories, Contemporary Lives by the Saru River, which is all about contemporary Ainu life in Nibutani, which is exactly what